and welcome to the Planning Committee. First of all, a few bits of housekeeping. If the fire alarm bell rings, it won't be a practice, so please go out quite orderly the way you come in. Could you switch your mobile devices to silent, please? If one goes off, we've got a tradition that you give the chairman £10 for a charity, so if you don't want to spend £10, switch your mobile off. The proceedings are being recorded. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak, and after that you'll hear a tone to wind up, please. This is the only opportunity for the public to speak, so please don't interrupt any other time. I'm sure you're not going to, but don't clap, hit, boo, cheer or stand up during the meeting. And then perhaps when you're talking, you'll see officers speaking up here, and it looks like, well, that's very bad manners, speaking while I'm speaking. They're speaking so they find the answer of the points that you're raising while you're speaking, so it makes for continuity. And, right, members, update on performance. The famous two figures this week are 86 and 6%, so not much different from last time. Now, in future, there will be more figures because there are more things being judged. So instead of giving a verbal comment each month, it will probably be done by email. And if something seriously goes wrong, we'll give a verbal comment, because it won't just be two figures, there will be several. And I'm sure you'll get bored with them. So you'll get an email about them. Alright? Next thing is apologies for absence. That means that we must be all here, or nearly all here. Anyway. Right, members' interest, disposable interest. Anything? No. Okay. Party whipping.
Chairman, Councillor Richard said he may be attending.
Right.
Training.
That's the point. We have 2 new members. Neither of them can vote tonight, but they can take part. Councillor Ritchie, who may turn up, but he's not here yet. And Councillor Wesley, who is here, so he can speak, but he can't vote yet till he's done particular training. So welcome to the committee. Right. Yeah, I better do the minutes. Is it your wish I sign the minutes as a true and correct record, please? Agreed. Thank you. Party whipping arrangements. No. To members of the public, people don't get together beforehand and during up and decide how they're going to vote. It's not done. Right, we go to the first application, which is in Barbie, and the number is 0658.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the site location plan. The site application site is located north of Barbie Village. It's the north of 56 Rugby Road. Rugby Road to the west of the application site forms the main road between Barbie and Rugby Road to the east of the public byway. The site currently accommodates a number of redundant outbuildings of varying scale and size. Application before members tonight seeks consent for an outline plan permission for the construction of up to 7 dwellings. And approval seeks for principal development with means of access for consideration only. You'll see with the plans an illustrative drawing has been submitted to demonstrate how the site could be developed. This could be subject to change on submission of reserve matters application. In consideration of the application, members will be aware that the rural housing allocation for the planned period has been met and in fact exceeded. As such, the latter part of policy R1 is engaged, and this states that further residential developments will only be permitted where it will result in environmental improvement or is required to support the retention or improvement of essential local services that may be under threat, and has been informed by an effective community involvement exercise or is an exception site or has been agreed to an adopted neighbourhood plan. In this case, whilst officers consider the site to be outside the confines of the village, the proposal would in fact result in environmental improvements and is identified in the emerging neighbourhood plan as being within the settlement boundary. The principal development is therefore considered acceptable. It is noted that representations have been raised concerning highway safety and regarding the proposed layout, including its ability to accommodate off-street parking provision. You'll see from the report that comments received from the County Highways Officer has raised no objection to the proposed means of access. Furthermore, the layout is not currently a matter for consideration. As regards to these circumstances, Of citizens to the proposal to be acceptable, recommending this application be approved, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. We have 3 speakers. First of all, Mr. Fisher is against the application. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm speaking against the development on behalf of local residents close to the site. I've spent more than 2 years working on the Village Neighbourhood Plan Steering Committee, which is now in the final examination stage. The site currently falls outside the village confines. However, what is noted that in the emerging neighbourhood plan, the site has been included inside the confines of the village. However, what is not mentioned are key policies of our neighbourhood plan which should be taken into careful consideration. The parish's future vision and objectives of the neighbourhood plan are a village which retains and enhances its rural form and character, and future development should be in keeping and sympathetic to its direct surroundings and locality. In the applicant's design and access statement, it was envisaged that the dwellings would be built in an arrangement to allow the properties to face inwards to a central courtyard and turning area. Such arrangement would allow for all properties to be accessed from the same entry point, therefore allowing the boundary hedging to remain intact, thus screening existing properties from the site. The planned removal of approximately 33 metres of mature hedgerow to allow new access, if not replaced, should not be considered, as it will have a most significant impact on the tranquility and rural aspect of the local surroundings, including dispersal of local wildlife, and 3 of the new double-storey properties suggested would have an overbearing effect with loss of privacy due to the level of the site on its eastern flank. Due to the size and density of the application, there is also the concern of the number of houses the applicant proposes to develop, and 7 houses being considered an overdevelopment. These properties will overlook and be in close proximity facing existing properties across a single-track highway, which is not in keeping at all with the local surroundings. This arrangement is completely out of character for this location and would completely destroy the rural feel and remove the views and create an urban feel. Furthermore, the only other property on the same side of land adjacent to the proposed development is an old detached farmhouse built prior to 1866, which is an undesignated heritage asset, which is also completely screened with no overbearing views. Current properties will lose outward views of the open countryside to the north and west of the site if such a size, type and density of development is granted due to the raised levels of the site to existing dwellings on its eastern flank. Any desired type of property should be sympathetic to this and taken into consideration. We also believe that development conflicts with provisions of local state plans and policies, and coupled with, though not yet adopted, our neighbourhood plan is at a very advanced stage, of which paragraph 216 of the framework advises that weight may be given to emerging plans according to their stage of preparation. According to a number of decisions issued by the Secretary of State, indicate the government view that considerable weight can be attached to neighbourhood plans even if they've not proceeded to examination stage, which ours has. Summing up, we stand together as local residents, parish council and one neighbourhood plan who love the character of our village, and as local residents believe the proposal is, as stands, an overdevelopment of a small site not in keeping with the character, design and structure, and not in keeping with its close rural settings. Hence, he is spending time creating a neighbourhood plan which we hope will hopefully be a voice recognised, and on that basis we believe the current development proposal should be rejected.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Blazard, Parish Council.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. My name is David Blazard. I'm Vice Chairman of Barby and Onley Parish Council, and I've been the lead parish councillor on the production of the neighbourhood plan for the parish. The Parish Council do not object to building on this land in principle. We accept the need for small-scale development within the parish. However, the plan before you tonight has been amended a number of times, and they were presented with a plan for 7 houses, which in our opinion have insufficient parking spaces, no on-road parking spaces, and little turning space for refuse lorries. And it also proposes to remove the field hedge down the eastern side of the plot, which separates the site from the roadway and screens it from neighbouring properties. The Parish Council would ask that you refuse this application so that a plan for fewer houses may be submitted. This will allow sufficient turning space for the oil tanker and bin men and sufficient parking for residents and visitors of the development. In particular, we ask that the proposed amendment to remove the established hedge is rejected. The hedge forms a green barrier and would visually screen the site from the residents of Rugby Road. It's also very important to the village and helps to preserve its rural identity. It's a loss of visual immediacy, basically. Protecting and enhancing the landscape character and views is seen as very important to the village, and as such has been incorporated in policies of our neighbourhood plan. So we ask that you refuse this application so that the applicant may resubmit a full application which seeks to retain the hedge, make a positive contribution to the character of the village with fewer properties. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reid is the agent.
I speak today on behalf of the applicant in support of the proposal of 7 dwellings on the land. I wish to set out briefly why we consider the proposed 7 dwellings should be granted planning permission. Just briefly, I wish to reiterate that this is an outline application with only access and the principle to be determined at this time. I also wish to briefly address the policy position in respect of housing supply distribution. The development plan for the period until 2029 is currently set by the core strategy. The plan, however, is not comprehensive as details of the housing distribution are to be provided within the second part of the plan, Part 2A, the settlements and the countryside local plan. This is at still a relatively early stage and it is not anticipated to be adopted until October 2018. At this stage then, the assessment to be made is whether the proposal represents a sustainable development for Barbie. As is well established, Barbie is a sustainable settlement capable of accommodating and benefiting from a small-scale development such as that proposed here today. The officer's report sets out the sustainability virtues of Barbie, including a range of services and facilities within the village. The neighbourhood plan for Barbie and Olding is now at an advanced stage, having been through consultation and revisions. The plan is now at a stage whereby an independent examiner is being appointed to assess the formal submission version. The neighbourhood plan identifies the site as being within the village confines and as such supports infill development of up to 10 dwellings. The proposed 7 houses fully accord with the policies and aims of the draft neighbourhood plan. It is entirely the type of small-scale development that will be most suitable for Barbie to accommodate small-scale housing developments such as this. The site benefits from screening and is largely redundant, serving no real purpose. The site itself is well located in respect of relating well to the adjacent development and forming a logical extension of the built form of the village. The illustrative layout provided shows how the development can be accommodated in a manner which respects the character and setting of the surroundings. In respect of more technical matters, we have worked with the council to meet all of the requirements requested. An archaeological dig was undertaken at the site and access arrangements were revised to the satisfaction of the county highways. As such, all matters are now acceptable to the relevant authorities. To conclude and in summary, 7 houses on the site will accord with the draft neighbourhood plan for Barbie, and it is a sustainable development in accordance with the relevant national and local planning policies. We therefore respectfully request that planning permission be granted to the application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Local member, Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether Councillor Lomax wishes to speak on this subject. I'll defer to her, if I may, to start with, because she lives there.
I'll tell you what, that's pretty good, isn't it, Councillor Lomax? You can go first.
Thank you very much.
No tree to stand there.
No, I'll just hang on to this. Thank you. Committee, I would like to object to this planning application and to make a suggestion in respect of it. I support entirely what Mr Fisher and Mr Blezard has said. I think there are several issues here. First of all, there are the potential height of the buildings. We don't know how high these buildings are going to be because this is an outline application. They are going to be standing higher than the houses opposite them, which are in fact dormer bungalows, apart from the very last house on that spur of Rugby Road. So I think we do have to take the height of the buildings into consideration. Also, the photographs on the screen have not actually emphasised sufficiently that there is a blind summit coming out of the spur of Rugby Road. Some of you may indeed know that part of Barbie, I don't know, but it is a blind summit, and it certainly doesn't show that to the extent that it is. in the photographs. So obviously anybody turning right out of that spur actually has great difficulty in getting out of the road, getting out of the spur onto the road to travel towards Rugby. Access for bin lorries, emergency vehicles and visitors concern me greatly as well. There doesn't seem to be a great deal of room for visitors' cars, and I think that it is overdevelopment of the site. The removal of the hedge actually does make it far more visible to everyone, whereas in fact keeping some sort of hedge line would make it far more in keeping with the rest of the village. What I would like to suggest is that in fact you reject this application tonight, but that the applicants come back with a full planning application so that we can actually see that those particular issues are addressed and we're happy and comfortable with them. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Lomax. Well done. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm inclined to agree with what Councillor Lomax has just stated, but perhaps not quite so strongly. I am concerned about this removal of the hedgerow and the narrowness of the lane there. That does concern me. And I do think from the drawings that I've just seen here and reading the report that it could be better designed. Now, as far as the site is concerned, I do believe that it is possible to develop this site, or maybe not in this strict format. So I'd like now to listen to what other councillors have got to say before I make any proposition.
Some members realise you're not judging that that's where the houses will definitely be. It's just the principle of it. That's just showing how they could go, but that will probably be nothing where they are. Okay? I nearly did catch the chart. Close to it.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple of points. I was going to remind everybody, as you just have, Chairman, that this is an outline application, so the look of the layout and so on is not for concern. We're here to establish or not the principle of development of up to 7 houses. I also wanted to remind people that despite what we heard from the speakers, no one has a right to a view in planning terms, and so I'm afraid that the interference with the views across the open field is not a consideration. I do, however, have a slight worry, and that is to do with the mention of the Section 106 agreement for affordable housing, which is based on our joint core strategy threshold of 5 dwellings. But a recent Supreme Court judgment seems to suggest that this ought to be 10. And I wondered if our legal advisor could bring us up to date on that.
That is indeed the case, Chairman, if I may. Our position was 5. There was then the High Court decision, and it's now gone through, I think it's certainly gone through to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal has overturned the High Court decision, so we're back at 10 again.
Which is not good news for our villages. No. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. I too was going to point out about the outline, but I actually got a couple of questions for officers which regard outline planning permission, because I'm not things I just want to clarify. The development says 7 dwellings, so does that mean there will be 7 or up to 7?
It means up to 7.
So it may be that when the developer has listened to what the parish council and other people have said, they may reconsider that. Okay. The issue of parking spaces, we have a standard, don't we, that we apply? Is it 1.5 or 2 spaces per dwelling?
Just to confirm that in rural areas, the standards set by county highways authorities 2 per dwelling. However, obviously circumstances may dictate that may be higher, that may be lower, depending on the circumstances of the site itself.
But it seems to me pretty clear that they need parking on site because of the narrowness of the lane and surrounding roads, so they will need to find 14 spaces. And I presume that would be covered at the reserve matters stage.
You're correct, Matt.
And the same thing with the hedge that looks like they want to remove. can we, is it possible at reserve matters to condition that it isn't removed?
Certainly at this stage, if there's a necessity to remove the hedge to ensure that there is adequate visibility, then the hedge will need to be removed as part of the proposed access. However, that's not to say that a new hedge can't be planted in a realigned position, taking into account that visibility display.
So that's landscape matters, basically. Okay, thank you very much.
Right, Chairman, you want to come back on a few of the points that were made earlier on?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Speakers are referred to the density of the application, but if we could just go to the site location plan. Members will take into account that the density towards the right-hand side, certainly the east side of Rugby Road, would not be dissimilar to the proposal for you tonight. Thank you.
Councillor
Sorry, just go back to the hedge. So we're not condemning the loss of the hedge, or are we condemning the loss of the hedge to a certain amounts?
Yeah. To accommodate the visibility display, certain sections of the hedge will need to be removed, but that's not to say that a new hedge can't be planted in a different position to ensure if that was necessary, to ensure that the rural aspect of that and rural character aspect of that was retained.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Sorry, Councillor. I couldn't see your pen. It was a bit like this.
Just a question. We're talking about a footpath, but on page 20 it does say that there is a footpath which links the facilities of Barbie with the application site. Now, does that path not go far enough? Because if it's coming from Barbie, it would go up to the entrance of the estate.
If you look on the east side of the proposed layout there, there is a footpath which is proposed there. I think the concerns are that the footpath doesn't extend all the way into Barbie. Although, from officer's point of view, again, what we're looking at is purely the principle of development here. If we look at the footpath, if we look at the landscaping, if we look at the layout proposal, these are all matters which can be altered as a result of the reserve matters application. The only thing we're looking for consideration of tonight is purely the access and whether or not the site itself can accommodate up to 7 dwellings.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think it should be noted that when the reserve matters application comes along, the parish council and the neighbours can look at that, and then, if necessary, the reserve matters application can come back to this committee.
Well, it will do anyway. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. I hear what Councillor Kathleen Lomax is saying about refusing this application as it is, but it's only for outline permission, so I can't see we've really got grounds. I mean, we'd all love them to see them come back with a full planning application, but Chair, I'm sure we haven't got grounds, have we? We was to turn it down for that reason. It just wouldn't tread water, so yeah, turn it down. We're actually voting on an outline permission. I don't think it's enough grounds, is it, to turn it down to come back with full planning.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Irving Swift first.
Yes, the speakers have all spoken very eloquently, and I'm sure the developers will have listened to what the village are saying, and we should maybe leave room for the officer to negotiate. We know it's up to 7. The parish is saying for them it's an overdevelopment. They don't like the 2-story and so on, and I think the developer has heard what was said, and we should maybe have that back in front of committee when the plan is a bit more advanced. Thank you.
Definitely will come back to committee, won't it? Don't reserve matter.
I mean, unless it needs a scheme of delegation. So that very much.
But if the
But
parish
if
is
the parish
satisfied,
councillor objection, it won't meet the scheme of delegation, will it? So I think we can pretty well say that it will come back to committee. Councillor Robertson.
I was going to say, Chair, we've just been told basically that all we're deciding on is the number of houses and the access in reality here. Now, I understand that the committee can call this into itself rather than it go to delegated authority. Is that correct?
It will, if there are objections by the parish, it will come back to this, and by the sound of it, the parish could object, so it will come back to. In fact, we could ask that it come back to this committee anyway, because the concerns are not the principal and the gateway. The concerns are overlooking size of buildings, numbers, and is all the hedge going? Now the concerns. So can that come back to the committee?
Because the Constitution advises that in the event that there are concerns raised by the parish council and those views differ from that of the case officer, there is a necessity, an obligation for officers to bring the application before members for consideration.
Is there not also a clause for a committee member to bring it before them if they've got material planning?
Yeah, any councillor, when a new application comes in, any councillor can request an application, it comes to committee for a planning meeting.
Provided
but we don't know what that will look
so
like.
you can bring it in.
So that includes reserved matters then?
No.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a point, we've said it time and time again. It's an indicative layout. Clearly, that layout tells you there's not enough parking. However, it's up to 7 dwellings. It's all going to come back. I think the parish council would have got the message about the objection. I have no hesitation in proposing that we accept officers as vice chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Loads of them. Anyone you like. Councillor Chandler will do it. Right, if we have no other speakers, we've got a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous.
Any against?
I hope not.
You never know, sometimes we do.
Chair, can I just make a quick suggestion, or to Maria anyway, that at some stage, possibly in the next training session, there is some further exploration of the difference between outline and reserve matters, just for the less experienced members of the committee.
Your comments have been noted. Parish Council, when it comes in to you, if you don't like what comes in, you can object to it, and that will ensure it comes back to planning committee, as long as it's a planning reason for objecting.
May I ask a question?
Okay.
With the reserve matters, I didn't think reserve matters came back to the parish council. I've never seen them.
Well, apparently it can be. So we just said that.
No. That's not your ownership. Parish council.
Oh, okay.
Okay, aren't they?
In terms of an application, or applications where there be reserved matters or outlined, parish council will always be consulted on the application. So there will be an opportunity for parish councillors to present their view as with neighbours as well.
Great.
If you lived in Longbutby, where you got a lot of houses, you see a lot of them, but when you're in Barbie, you don't get a lot of these applications. You probably don't see many of them, but you will get them.
Good, thank you.
Okay, the application is approved. Move on to the next one now, which is 1167 in Longbutby.
Thank you, Chairman. The site lies in the confines of Longbutby village and forms part of the residential coastal in 67 Station Road. You'll see from the plan that existing property is a 2-storey semi-detached dwelling with a detached garage to the side. The detached garage acts on Station Road, and the north boundary will join the car park and the building of Longbutby Football Club. The application seeks to demolish the garage building to construct a small 2-bedroom, 2-storey dwelling with a single parking space for the existing dwelling and a single parking space for the proposed dwelling. As with the previous application, the latter part of policy R1 is engaged and in consideration of this application. It's considered that removal of the redundant garage would result in environmental improvement to the immediate area. However, it's evident that no community involvement exercise has been undertaken. The development is not considered as an exception size, and no neighbourhood plan is available for Longbutby. As such, it is acknowledged that there is some conflict to the latter part of policy R1. Equally, though, it's reasonable to argue that the necessity for community involvement exercise should be proportional to the development proposed, and this forms a material consideration in determination of the application. In this case, officers consider the scale of development does not warrant a a separate community involvement exercise in addition to the statutory consultation carried out. Furthermore, the location of the proposal is such that the spatial strategy for rural areas will not be undermined by an approval on this site. Officers therefore consider the principle of rural development to be acceptable. You will note from the report that concerns have been raised by the County Highways Officer as the development is unable to accommodate 2 spaces per dwelling as required by normal standards. No objections have been raised with respect to the access itself. The existing dwelling currently benefits from 1 parking space and the access arrangements also necessitate a vehicle to reverse onto the main highway. The proposed plan indicates the retention of the A parking space of the existing dwelling, whilst providing 1 parking space for the new dwelling and allowing for an on-site turning area for both vehicles to exit the site in a forward manner. As previously said, it's acknowledged that the parking standard for rural areas is normally 2 spaces per dwelling. However, material consideration should also be taken into account that no less parking space is being provided for the existing dwelling, and whilst only 1 parking space is provided for the new dwelling, the proposed dwelling forms a small property with limited scope for further extension. Furthermore, the site benefits from a high level of alternative sustainable transport modes and the provision of day-to-day facilities within short walking distance, thus reducing the need for private transport provision. However, with regard to these site-specific circumstances, officers consider that on balance the parking arrangements are acceptable, and overall officers consider the application to deliver a much-needed smaller property within the confines of Daventry, without detriment to the visual amenity or residential amenity, nor compromise the highway safety. And as such, we recommend this application be approved, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. We have a speaker, Mr. Hammond, who's the agent.
Good evening, Chair, Councillors and Officers. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm Roy Hammond and I speak on behalf of the applicant. I note and welcome the Officer's recommendation for approval and only intend to highlight the principal merits of the proposal to you. The case officers eloquently reasoned out why the minor conflict with Policy R1 of the Joint Core Strategy is outweighed by the broader compliance with the spatial strategy and therefore why the proposal is acceptable in principle. We are proposing a modest 2-bedroom dwelling on land within the built-up part of Longbuckby, which will make a positive contribution to the mix of housing in the village. The proposal would result in environmental improvement through the removal of the existing dilapidated garage and the construction of a new dwelling that would be in keeping with the character of the area. The proposal would also not result in harm to residential amenity. One of the principal concerns is in relation to parking and highway safety. Sufficient turning space for vehicles will be provided on site, where currently vehicles are forced to reverse out onto Station Road. Longbuckby is a highly sustainable and accessible location where there is less of a requirement for reliance on the private motor vehicle. The dwelling is also modest in size and, as the officer has already pointed out, with little scope for additional extension. Having regard to these matters, 1 space per dwelling is considered to be acceptable and would be consistent with the level of parking provided in recent developments in the locality. The proposal for all of these reasons meets sustainable development objectives consistent with local and national planning policies, and I respectfully urge the committee to approve the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Welcome member, Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have problems with this development, and I will refer members to what the NCC have said about it. We always know that highways don't often comment. In normal years I've been on the committee, it's not very often, so when it is, it is worth listening to. Where this is you obviously heard the officer saying next door is the football club. I think that's actually part of it as well. The house is there, and right next to it is a football club. You didn't see it quite from the photos. And I do agree that it would, it would enhance it with the getting rid of that garage. But it's dangerous. It is dangerous. It's a dangerous area, and there isn't. It's not. And basically, there's no point going through it all because basically, I wish to put a proposition forward that we refuse this application on NCC, exactly the same what they've put, what they say, on highway grounds, please.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Councillor. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Paul. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Paul?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. I concur with my colleague. I do have a problem, particularly on that stretch of road. It is infamous on match days. It is infamous as part of a rat run. I don't agree with officers. It's not very often I disagree with them, but I don't agree with officers about sustainability. 2 bedrooms, 1 car space, it's not going to happen. Two bedrooms are invariably indicative of 2 cars. To walk to the shops along that road, I wouldn't do it. I should walk into town. It's up a gradient, and when you get to the shops, you yourself agree, Chairman, that whilst there is a couple of shops there, invariably people will go out of the village. And purely and simply, I do agree with my colleague, and for once in my life I agree with NCC Highways. I certainly don't think it is acceptable on highway issues. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. I don't disagree with what's been said so far, and it did strike me quite forcibly when I looked at it on the website when we had the papers, that it appears to be trying to put a quart into a pint pot. And I think that if it was me, I'd also suggested it was overdevelopment of the site. And I tend to agree that 2 car parking spaces for 2 houses it should at least be 3, if not 4. And I think that knowing that stretch like Councillor Poole does, they're not on match days, it's bad enough the rest of the time. And parking is an issue down there, hence all the signs on the verges that sprung up. So yes, I'm minded to accept to vote against this application.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patchett, then Councillor Vinswick, then Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm going to take the opposite view. I mean, I've walked along that road on many occasions, and there's perfectly adequate footpath. And it's only becomes a steep gradient when you're going down to the station. And we do need smaller properties for younger families. And younger families can generally only afford 1 car anyway, if they can afford one at all. And there's a good bus service that goes through Longbuckby, so I'm going to take the opposite view and agree officers' advice.
Thank you. Councillor Vinswick.
Yes, Councillor Frenchman had throws the overdevelopment. Is that if we are minded to go against officer advice, will it be better to stick to NCC view, or should we put also overdevelopment of the site as a reason?
I'll get an officer to answer it. I can answer it,
yes. From an officer's point of view, if we look at the plan before us tonight, you'll see that 67 proposed amenity space, not dissimilar to that proposed on the application for you tonight for consideration. So from an officer's point of view, we don't feel that if you were to put forward a recommendation, proposal on overdevelopment, that actually supported.
Thank you so much.
I've got Councillor Robinson first.
I was just going to reinforce what Councillor Frenchman said regarding being overdevelopment. I think it's just jammed in a bit there, isn't it? There's not much doubt about that. It looks to me as if it's one plot been divided into 3 over the years. Now, I don't know the truth of that at all, but it is a fairly corner plot, so it's bound to be bigger than the others, but as we can see from the plan. But I still think that the very fact that they can't get enough car parking space in there, and the noted dangers of traffic, which tries up and down that road far too quickly, as you can see, is to be taken into consideration.
Right. I know you've got your hand, Councillor Osborne, but you're the proposer, so you will be speaking last. Any other comments? Councillor Evans?
Thank you, Chairman. Perhaps it should be made clear that that was not one site. There are two semi-detached houses.
Sorry, that is?
Those two houses. Councillor Robertson said he thought it was one house, it was one property.
Those two separate houses, they're semi-detached.
Yeah.
And the house that's going to be built is beyond the garage.
Yeah, I'm explaining to Councillor Robertson that he said that looked as though that was one house once upon a time. It's been divided into two. Well, it wasn't.
No, it's always been two separate houses.
I'm going with officer's advice on this as well. It's a small house which is needed by perhaps a young couple. As far as the cars are concerned, the house has perhaps got two cars now, so the house that's already there. So at the most it's only going to perhaps make a difference of one car. And they're not going to come out backwards, they're going to come out forwards. I can't see what difference that most likely one car is going to make, and that house could be used for a couple. I'm going with officer's advice.
Well, I'm going to make a comment now as a local member. I did have one concern, that if you were putting the building next to a football club that has discos up to midnight, you're going to get noise and nuisance. If it was the other way round, if you were going to put the club next to the building, next to the house, you'd never allow it. But the other way round, somebody will be moving into a house there that'll be right next to a club. That's the comment I make as well. Anyway, Councillor Osborne, it's back to you as the proposer.
Just want to say a couple of things. For a start, it is starting at the top of the brow of the hill, and you say that there needs a smaller development. I'm sure members of this planning committee know that just a couple of 100 yards down the road, we've got development on the right-hand side, which is already going, and the other side hasn't been started yet. I think we've got loads of houses. You know, there's 100 and something, and you know, there's a mixture of them, so it's not going to really make any difference. But my point is it's at the top there, and it's the start of. It's right next to Watson Road, which also has problems at the moment with parking. Those people that don't want to use a train station, car park because of the charges, they're having problems with people parking down their road, also people parking on that road. Where are those people going to park with their two spaces? They can't park on the road. The soccer club car park gets busy all the time, and even when it's closed, it's got cars from that house there anyway. It's got them at the front, it's got two, and then two by the side of it. So it really is, actually, it really is important on the highways. And those people that haven't been on planning committee long, like I've said, and I will say it again, NCC highways don't comment very often. And when they do comment, I mean, we all sit here and say, oh, they haven't commented, they haven't commented. Well, they have commented. So they're obviously, there's a good reason for it. So I think, you know, we live there as well. It's always local is the best, local knowledge, and that yeah, it's definitely not right.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Yeah. We have a proposal the application be refused for the given reasons by the NCC Highways. That's been seconded. All those in favour, please show. 8. Those against? Right, the application is refused for the given reason. The next application is in Broadston, and the number is 0132.
Thank you, Chairman. The site lies approximately 400 metres south-west of Broadston Village, between the 845 to the north and the Grand Union Canal to the south. The site is actually located in the Grand Union Canal Conservation Area. The existing building forms a two-storey flat roof post-war industrial building finished in brick, and there have been several extensions to the rear of the building and the outbuildings themselves. The application seeks consent for additional pitched roof building and solar panels to the south slope of the roof of the proposed roof. You'll see from the report that the history indicates the proposal is identical to the previous application approved by the planning committee, but this application has actually lapsed, this consent has actually lapsed. The previous application was recommended for refusal by officers who considered the proposal was detrimental to the canal conservation area. The circumstances of the previous application have not altered, and as such, views of the officers remain the same, and the recommendation for refusal is consistent with the officers' previous views. Likewise, members may equally be consistent in their determination of the application. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. So, I'm sure most of you remember this.
Yes.
I can remember voting a particular way. Anyway, it was refused against officers' advice. And now approved against officers' advice. That has lapsed. So the application's come in again. Now the officers wouldn't be being consistent if they didn't again recommend it for refusal. But that doesn't mean that it could put us in an awkward position if it goes to appeal. So perhaps members ought to consider what they considered last time, is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to push you into voting a certain way, but that is the background of it. Okay? Local member, there is no local member in that ward here, so who would like to open the debate? I say nobody, right? Okay. Councillor Patchy.
I mean, we voted to approve this last time, and I think it would put us in a very difficult position, as you quite rightly said,
Yeah.
if we refused it this time. So I should propose that we approve this application.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Councillor Adam. Sorry?
Same reasons as last time.
The reason. Yeah. Right, anybody wish to speak on it?
So can I just clarify, this is exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Thank you.
And the actual consent is only just lapsed.
It's lapsed, I know,
in February.
which is silly of the applicant,
Yeah.
but there we go.
We've got Councillor Chandler, Councillor Wesley.
Councillor Chandler first.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to point out that the situation here is not exactly the same as before, because since then we've adopted the joint rule structure.
Okay. Yes, sir, you're dead right. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. I can't speak on this, and I wasn't party to it.
You can speak. You can't vote.
Sorry, I can't vote.
I just can't vote.
Sorry, my brain engaging. Wasn't party to it last time, but having gone through it, I just see no reason why you shouldn't say yes to this, and especially being sort of sat down and walked along the back of that as well. I don't think it's at all detrimental. It's got some nice solar panels on it as well. I know people think they're ugly, but they're supposed to do a job. So I think you should carry on and vote to approve this.
I think this is right. I actually did vote the other way.
You're a very naughty boy.
I voted for refusal last time, along with the officers, because I sit and fish there often, and I know what a nice place it is. Councillor Paul.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. One concern is the reflection of the sun on the solar panels running into the bend just past the boatman.
And crashes.
Why I say that is because in Germany they've really taken solar panels on board, and particularly in the countryside you'll see them not only on the roof but on the side of the building. There are times when the reflection is quite dangerous, but assurance from the officers that this won't be the case, then that's fine.
I'm pointing that out. Councillor Irving Swift?
Yes, they are going to build it from scratch. So now you have tiles that can be solar panels. So can that be imposed as a condition that the solar panels are in fact tiled part of the roof and not solar panels that are attached on the roof?
Sorry?
Through the Chairman, we have to consider what's before us, and that is the separate panels, but they are not facing the road.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, we've got a proposal of the application being approved for the given reason. It's been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Unanimous. So that means there's nobody against. Right, the application is approved as per last night. The next one is in Charlotte, and the number is 0143.
Thank you, Chairman. The application site is an area of paddock adjacent to Meadow Cottage. You'll see from the report that Meadow Cottage and the paddock are actually in the same ownership. The process is actually part retrospective and seeks consent for a change in use of the small area of paddock to residential to allow the creation of a hard standing, turning and parking area and vehicle crossover closure of existing access. There may be issues of consideration about whether the change in use of the land is acceptable or will not unduly domesticate an area of open countryside, and whether or not the new access will compromise highway safety. You'll see from the report there are no comments or objections from the Parish Council. In consideration of the first issue, the site is immediately opposite a driveway and garage to Orchard House, and when viewed from the street, the development will be viewed in the context of both Meadow Cottage and Orchard House. The remaining paddock area is also separated from the site by post and rail fencing and is accessed from a separate entrance. The site doesn't extend beyond the rear of the building line of Meadow Cottage, nor intrudes into the main part of the paddock area. Equally, the remaining paddock is clearly defined by the boundary treatment, and in regard to these circumstances, consider the proposed change of use will not be detrimental to the character and form of the village, and is therefore acceptable to officers. In consideration of the highway safety, you'll see that highways officers advise that an in-out access arrangement will compromise highway safety, and advise that single access should be permitted with only appropriate visibility. However, it should also be noted there's no excessive traffic movements, vehicle traffic movements in Church Street. As one inspector put it, it's hardly Piccadilly Circus. Furthermore, there's no footpath at this point of Church Street. Officers therefore consider the request to impose vehicular and pedestrian visibility displays would not only be unreasonable, but would actually result in a very much over-engineered urban solution in a very much rural setting, which would be disproportionate to the scale of development and could not be held as appeal. Officers therefore consider the proposal access arrangements to be acceptable, and overall the development is found to be in accordance with the development plan and should be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, John. We have one speaker. Mr. Jones is the applicant.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to raise a few points, but do welcome the recommendation for approval from the planning officer. The issues that have been raised are one of, first of all, parking in the turning circle. Where you can see on the picture there is the turning circle itself, and parking was always in where that driveway is now, and there were builders' vans, etc., that were parked in front of that. And then, as a consequence, large delivery trucks and dustbin lorries couldn't actually get down and turn in that turning circle without great difficulty. So that resulted in a few issues with one or two building merchants actually reversing down Church Street. However, what I'd like to point out here is that as a result of the driveway, if permission is granted, is that the parking would be severely restricted on that side. So that would actually help matters rather than hinder. The other issue is safety, and just to point out the committee members' observation that this is largely a no-through road. There is a road that goes slightly off to the local church, but the traffic through there, the through traffic, is absolutely minimal. Consequently, it is effectively a no-through road where traffic comes down, turns in a turning circle and goes back up again. The old access has also been raised, and I want to make that point very clear that the old access is stopped. There is only a path now to our new front door, which is part of the planning permission from the previous application. As soon as I stopped work on this, once I found out that I needed to put in a change of use, but there is a footing in place now right across that old access, where a brick wall will now, a stone wall will now be laid once approval is granted. That's immediately, you can see there across that pathway there will be a stone wall. We've got absolutely no plans to build anymore. Now we've spent all our money on doing the annex and the extension, and with no plans absolutely not to build, and there's not enough room anywhere for a decent sized house. And the access has been given approval by Highways, so access into that new driveway there, I now have an approval letter from Highways, subject to appointing an approved contractor to build what is effectively a drop curb. Whether there will be a drop curb there is currently being taken up by one of the contractors with Highways as to what we would do there, because there's obviously no pathway, there's no curving as such, just a grass verge. Thank you.
Okay, sir, thank you. Local member, do you wish to speak now? Councillor Hatchett.
Yeah, well, yes, I will, Chairman. The applicant has given the committee a very succinct synopsis of how it is down at the end of Church Street. And during my term as District Councillor for Charwalton, which is sort of 6 years now, I've had quite a lot of phone calls and letters and complaints, and there's been handbags that have gone up and down Church Street, and there's been builders' lorries, as was stated, Tesco lorries unable to turn around on that corner. But you know what's actually there now is better than what was there before. It does flood occasionally. That's work's ongoing, and I hope we'll never do again if the works are kept in good order. I'm actually going to sit on the fence with this and register a I'm not going to vote for or against it. I'm going to abstain for this application, and I'll have a listen to what the members have got to say about it.
Okay. Councillor Lacey, you put
No, sorry. Oh, sorry, the parish are silent on it because of this kind of, for other reasons.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Patchett.
No, he's Councillor Patchett.
Oh, sorry, I beg you. Councillor Frenchman.
They got us confused. Yes, they have again.
You're right, he is Councillor Patchett.
I mean, now it's built and it's obviously a retrospective or part retrospective. I can't see much harm in it, so I'd like to propose that we agree officers' advice.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Councillor Robertson next to you. Do you want to speak on it?
I only wanted to say that I'm a little confused as to the requirement for a drop curb, and there isn't any curb at all anywhere near it. So.
I'm sure they'll have sorted that between the contractor and county. Anybody else wish to speak on it? If not, Councillor Paul?
No, I'm just flabbergasted that Councillor Patchett was stuck for words.
Okay, we've got a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. You noted that you didn't take part. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
There's splinters.
Thank you. The application is approved. The next application is in Barbie again, 0215. It's not in Barbie, well, it is in Barbie Parish, it's only Barbie.
Thank you, Chairman. The application site forms a two-storey semi-detached post-war estate dwelling on the Army Park Estate. The application seeks consent to construct a two-storey side extension or a single-storey lean-to extension to the front. Obviously, the proposed extension will remain subservient to the main dwelling in scale. Furthermore, sufficient garden and eating space will be retained to the side and the rear of the dwelling. Regards to the concerns raised by the Parish Council in relation to visibility for vehicles, officers consider the proposal would not block any vision from the garage access road nor the main estate road. The application cites a corner plot and the proposed extension would extend approximately only 1.5 metres further into the side garden than the existing single-storey side extension. Given the position of the dwelling, no loss of visibility will result to uses of the main roads, no loss of privacy would result to nearby dwellings, and in regards to these circumstances, I'll consider the application to be acceptable and advise that it be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chuck. You see a nice picture of it just there. Councillor Lomax, do you wish to speak or not?
Chairman, I just wanted to say that as long as the building, I know that the objection from Bromley residents is that in fact already part of the highway verge has actually been taken away by extension of the boundary fence, but as long as the building doesn't go any further, and you'll see that in fact the width of the verge on the opposite side of the road is wider. It's actually wider on the, and so in fact there is obviously been encroachment onto the verge. However, as long as it doesn't go any further than the boundary fence at the moment, I can't see that there is any objection. It will be a very, very large extension, and I think it's a pity that in fact there have been so many very large extensions in Olney, because in fact there is no coherence. There is becoming no coherence in this estate.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Robertson.
Well, I would urge any councillor that hasn't actually been to Olney, if there are any, go and have a look at Olney, because it's a very nice little enclave there. I like it. I don't know why, it's fairly ordinary, but nonetheless it's a little enclave, and I just like the look of it. Now, as for this, concerns have been raised from the parish, and I'm going to give them some weight here, particularly the Residents Association, because basically they're the people that live there, and nobody else seems to want to go there. So I think that their views have got to be taken into consideration here. However, I'm not going to propose either way at the moment. I'm going to listen to everybody else's views.
I must say that the feeling I got when I read the report was both residents and the parish council thought that the building was going to come right up to where their fence
I felt the same.
Mistakenly
I
thought that.
Yeah.
And had it done so, I would have probably agreed with them. It would have looked massive, but it doesn't come that far. It just comes to a bit further than where the single story building is already. Right, Councillor Organ, then Councillor Frenchman.
Yeah, I would go along with Sir advice, and it just looks like a common sense, a modest proposal, and I can't see a reason why we would object to that.
Okay, so you're proposing?
I do propose that we.
Okay, do you have a second? It's easier to take Councillor Frenchman because you're next to speak.
Yes, I was going to say much the same as Councillor Organ. The only point I would make, and Councillor Lomax brought it up, is whether it can be investigated if there has been any encroachment with the narrowness of that verge on that side. Yes.
Other than land grabbing.
Yes.
Well, normally the county yell out if they're out.
Well, only if they see it.
Yes. Well, when they show the plans, they normally do, because there's one.
If it doesn't show the fence line, I don't know.
No, probably not.
So I would like that to be brought to somebody's attention for checking, is that right? Or?
Well, it's a matter for the county.
Sorry?
It's a matter for the county.
If they don't know about it, I'm suggesting we bring it to their attention.
Well, they don't see that as their agent.
Through you, Chairman, they know about the application and they'll do a site visit for Yeah, they visit every site.
Is that actually true?
They visit, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember which application, but there's an application on tonight, because I've read it, where the county say that encroached on the county's land. So they do make comments like that.
Yeah. To the Chair, I'm not so sure that we can argue encroachment here anyway, because this used to be Crown Estate, and I do believe that it's not been adopted by any council.
Okay.
Can I comment?
Yes, well,
I'm sorry, but you can't. I apologise. Well, I'll tell you what, if you know the answer, tell us. If you don't.
Is even the grass verge and the paths are owned by the residents, who a bit of path and stuff is actually outside their house. But that particular house actually has, where them double gates are, behind there is a concrete hard standing which actually used to be owned by the prison,
Yeah.
And also there used to be a lamp post which was outside, which was owned by the parish council, and they put the fence around the lamp post, so in the end the parish took the lamp post away.
So we don't want to get involved in any other. Thank you. We've got a proposal, the application be approved. It's been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Unanimous? The application is approved. And last but not least, Abbey North, or even Abbey South. That's not Abbey North. 0343.
Thank you, Chairman. The application site lies in Daventry Town Centre and comes to mid-terrace house on the south side of the square. The property is actually a Grade 2 listed building located in the Daventry Conservation Area. The application seeks consent to change the use of the dwelling to a house of multiple occupation with 9 lettable rooms. You'll see from the report that listed building consent for internal alterations to allow the property to accommodate 9 dwellings, a shared kitchen, diner, 2 bathrooms and a shared cloakroom have been previously approved. No further alterations are proposed to accommodate the change of use requested. Reference has been made in the report in paragraph 4, page 56, the provision of 3 parking spaces to the rear boundary wall. Having regard to the late representations received, it's advised that these parking spaces should not be a material consideration in determination of the application, as their provision cannot be maintained in perpetuity. However, the absence of such provision does not alter the officer's advice. It's noticed that representations received raise concerns of the lack of parking and the loss of parking for businesses in the square. The demand for parking associated with businesses normally concentrated during working hours, whereas demand for residential parking would be greater in evenings and weekends. As such, there would be some conflict of demand at the weekends. However, there are many car parking spaces available in the town centre within short walking distance, and residents may equally apply for parking exemption permits if required. Furthermore, it's not unusual that historic residential properties within the locality to have none or limited parking provision, and the current permitted use would equally attract a number of parking spaces required. And in regards to the comments received from statutory consultees and the matters set out in the report, officers consider the proposal to be acceptable and advise that the application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. We have 2 speakers. First of all, from the Town Council, Mr. Golden.
Hi, hello everybody. My name is Craig Golden from Daventry Town Council. Daventry Town Council submitted an objection to the application for a change of use to a 9-bedroom house in multiple occupation. The Town Council is aware of the need for housing, but does not agree that the solution is to convert older, larger houses into houses for multiple occupation. This is a retrograde step in the health and social housing, and dangerously similar to housing in the early 20th century. On planning grounds, the Town Council objects to this application as the property does not have sufficient parking. Should 9 residents have vehicles and use existing parking on the street and marketplace, the subsequent effect would be to greatly reduce parking for the retailers, services that rely on the existing parking facilities to sustain their businesses. The Town Council is also concerned in relation to bin collection and the management of refuse generated by 9 residents. The Town Council is aware of that the property site sits bins to the rear of the property and would ask that details are provided by the owner, letting agent, on how they intend to manage the refuse to ensure it is put out for collection and not left to become an eyesore and an environmental hazard for neighbouring properties. Since the Town Council's objection to this planning application, we note that there have been 2 letters of objection from Mr Tom Askill, Stepdale's Limited Property Surveyor, and Mr Peter Wakeford, who I believe is a local property owner. They cite issues of right-of-way, which for the rear of the property, access, the size of the narrow alleyway that goes down through there, and I think that there are diagrams that illustrate that this wouldn't be an adequate proposal.
car parking, refuse, waste and security. This is a retrospective application as well, and I would argue that allowing this to go through sends the wrong message to people who are prepared to let people, many people live in their homes without having the correct planning permission. And we don't really need to be cramming people in like sardines. I don't think that Daventry town is that full.
Thank you, sir. Second speaker is Mr. Smart, who's the applicant.
Hi. We'd just like to make a point that we have actually had a licence granted by Daventry District Council for a 9-bedroom HMO already, which has been since January, February of this year. The property itself is 6-bedroom HMO, and we are asking it to be a 9-bedroom due to the size of the location, the property. The tenants that we are looking to rent the rooms, the ones that existing tenants we have, are all full-time employment. So they're not there generally in the day. Not every one of them will drive due to the location of the property because it is in the town centre. So we have been running this as a HMO now for the last 3 months. With regards to the waste, we do have cleaners that go in on a weekly basis that clean the communal areas, take the rubbish out and bring them in, and we've had no issues or concerns since the start of that happening. Parking, we have 2 tenants that have applied for permit parking already. There is 3 parking spaces to the rear of the property, which it isn't narrow at all. I did live in that property prior to it being changed to a HMO. It doesn't warrant a family home due to the location of it, because there is a lot of businesses around there, clubs, etc. But as I said, the tenants that we do have enjoy living there. They are more low, the younger people or couples who can't afford properties, and we've had no issues or concerns since we've been running as a 6-bed HMO. We are just requesting that it could be a 9-bedroom HMO.
Thank you, sir. Right, not going to get this one wrong, am I, Abby? So there's 2 of you.
And if you want to.
Do you want to go first, Councillor Adam, or Councillor Leslie? He's Abby says as well, isn't
Yes, you can.
Sorry?
Yeah, okay, I'll say something. It's a difficult one. I do have concerns about on the parking side of this. It gets extremely busy up there at various times, weekends and daytime. I'm not sure from the plans whether it's fully reconciled that everything is okay, and we do see more and more multiple occupancy dwellings in Daventry, despite the fact that there's more and more houses elsewhere. My view is it's a step too far from 5 or 6 up to 9, and I do think the observations about the car parking are a tad tenuous, assuming that people won't have cars and assuming they won't be there in the peak times is just a little bit odd, really. And we've actually heard about other applications tonight where parking has been of a concern, for instance out in Long Buckbeak, and I'd like the similar considerations to be made to this application as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, when I first read the report, I thought, oh, this is going to be straightforward, because they've got their nautical occupancy. Okay, the Conservation Officer says no objection, Environmental Protection said no objection. Not that it makes any difference to this, but I am a bit concerned about these little things that are popping up everywhere, multiple occupancies, that I wouldn't let that sway me one way or the other in this. One of the things I am concerned about is that now there isn't going to be any parking spaces around the back. It's all right saying that there's plenty of car parking spaces, etc., but we've had quite a few of these just lately, perhaps not as big as 9, but 2s, 3s, 4s, and none of them have really had proper parking spaces. Now, we're promoting Daventry to get people to come here. If they can't find parking spaces to shop, they're not going to stay here. And I'd hate to think that because these houses that are being split up and having more people inside them, will use the car parking spaces. Okay, they're saying they won't use them during the day. But even at night, car parks are getting filled up. And being on the Market Square, our church is used an awful lot, and you'd be surprised what problems there are trying to get car parking spaces when there's a church service or a funeral or a wedding. And I'd rather see car parking spaces be used for things like that and for shopping than for somebody who has to walk quite a way to get to a parking space. So I'd like you to, I'd like to listen to the other people first, and then perhaps I can come back.
Thank you. Councillor Frenchman is next.
Thank you, Chair. I listened with interest to the comments of the previous local councillors, and I tend to agree with them. I'm quite confused as to why listed building consent has been given for a change of internal use, but it didn't come as a planning application. I don't quite understand the relationship between those two bits of work, but perhaps you could answer that in due course. I think it's disingenuous to say that they all work during the day and necessarily drive. They might work in the town centre, in which case they would leave their car park there. So that, I think the parking is a really important point, and I've spent some little while when visiting Daventry trying to find parking spaces. At the moment it's free, and we've suggested that will go on for a while, but if we keep getting these sorts of applications where people are suggested to use our car parks that we provide for visitors, then we may have to look at charging people, and that would just be a retrograde step. So I'm of a mind to go against officers' advice on this for many of the reasons raised so far.
Okay. Are you proposing?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. I've got 4 speakers. I'll tell you who you are so you know where you're coming. Osborne, Carr, Paul and Urban Swift. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm also, I won't go over the parking again because I do agree with the speakers about the parking. But my other problem is about what's going on inside. At the moment it's for 6 bedrooms, but for the additional 3 more. And it's for 2 shared bathrooms and 1 shared toilet. It's like cloakroom. And the gentleman just said that there could, there's couples in there that can't afford a house, can't afford properties or whatever. You think if they are couples or there's 2 in there, that could be up to 18 people in there, all with that, all doing sharing that, even if it's not. And even if it's 1 in each, that's still a lot of people sharing that amount, especially if they're working people or whatever, and they're in and out, and they're all going, do you know what I mean? There's a lot. And that's my other concern as well. I don't personally, I personally don't think this should be changed to 9 bedroom at all. I think it should be. I think we should refuse it too.
Okay. I have to say that my previous job was chairman of housing, and 10 and 20 years ago, Hollows didn't have a very good reputation, certainly in Daventry and in some of the larger villages. But Hollows now have improved considerably. Their clientele has improved. The places have improved a lot over the years, so don't judge them by what they used to be. That's all I'm saying. I know we're not talking about parking. You're talking about parking, but I'm just saying that. Right, Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. It seems I'm going to be hard one out here in some way, because I'd like to go with the officer's advice. I can't believe they were putting cars before people. Here we're being offered 9 individual rooms for people. People are probably having to live with their parents and that. And to them, this would be a gold mine if they could get out on one of these rooms. And where's quoted that I'm not being the parking, I totally agree there. it's a very dangerous road. There was no sufficient parking. But here you're talking about, Chair, in the middle of the town centre, there is parking, there's plenty of parking, and I believe there is parking to accommodate these 9 properties. But the high importance of this, it's for 9, it could be for 9 people, it could be for 18 people. And we're saying they can't live there because of a parking situation. You know, and I do believe there's people on the housing list, the council will tell you, who are screaming out just for to you know, fledge a nest and get their own apartment like this.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Paul.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I have a problem.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reminded that Councillor Carr then made a proposal. You did make the proposal.
Look, yes, Chair, I will make a proposal.
That the application be approved. So I have to, before you speak, I have to ask if you've got a seconder.
I've been inclined to second that.
Councillor Robertson, thank you. You can in fact speak before Councillor Paul if you want to, or I can add you on the list.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to do that. Right. Basically, I agree with what Councillor Carr just said. I think that we must put people in this case before the considerations of parking, because we do desperately need low-cost accommodation, and low-cost accommodation is what HMOs are. And I think they haven't been around that long, actually. They've been around, what, 10, 15 years at the most. I can't remember when it came out, the legislation. I was rather surprised at it, to be honest, because I think it was just to control this kind of accommodation in a very low-priced area. However, we've got it now, and they have already applied for 9 rooms, as we've heard, and received approval for that in terms of HMO status. So I'm afraid I'm in favour of it.
Thank you, Councillor. So you're seconding it. Right, Councillor Paul, back to you. Sorry to interrupt you, Councillor Paul.
No, that's all right. Excuse me, Chairman. I smiled briefly, purely and simply because Councillor Frenchman brought up something that has nudged my memory with regards to the internal alterations of a listed building. The proposed change would not have significant effect or have significant impact on the character of the locality, and the external appearance of the building would be unaltered. I will remind members of that in probably no doubt many application time, when we've been minded to take a wall down inside a building and we couldn't because it was a listed building. However, the question of parking, whilst that photo is on the screen and whilst officers have time to have a look, there's a triangle of land there. I don't know, and that one there, yes, thank you, officers. I don't know the ownership of that triangle of land. There is a triangle there which has, for a number of years, ownership has always been questioned because it was always a rubbish tip. The plans that the officers put on the screen regarding parking places in Daventry town centre, slightly confusing in as much as they're all short stay parking. And if you want a long stay car park, you have to go to the outside of town. Many of the employers or employees of the retail premise and office premise in town have to park outside of town purely and simply because of the short stay car parks. If there is a permit system in being, then I'm happy to do that. I do take Councillor Carr to task, and also Councillor Robertson, purely and simply because we stopped putting children up chimneys many, many years ago. We are cramming people in.
I wasn't advocating that at all.
We are cramming people into a building, 9 bedrooms, and coming from London, you know, I've seen it happen time and time again, and my colleague was right, 9 bedrooms could mean 18 people. 18 people sharing a bathroom, sharing a toilet. However, our officers have, without any doubt, used the guidelines, and they've granted permission for a multiple occupancy property. Where does that leave us as a planning committee legally? I would be very curious to know, because I'm certainly not in favour of it. There are many multi-occupancy buildings in the town centre. They do not enhance the town centre. I won't name those buildings publicly, but I'm happy to do it after the meeting, Chairman. There are problems with refuge. I hear what the applicant has said, and I welcome what he has said. However, if that be the case, that he will look after the refuge on a weekly basis, I would welcome it, and perhaps that could be enforced on the other multi-occupancy buildings. When we talk about when I'm talking about multi-occupancy, I'm talking about the blocks of flats and apartments in and around the town centre. And we are constantly bombarded by people saying that the town centre is shabby and look at this and look at that. I don't think this will add anything to the town centre. I don't like people living in rabbit hutches, and that's what this is. Councillor Carr said, you know, well, people don't want to live with parents. Well, strange as it may seem, I had to live with my parents until I found somewhere to live, along with my 2 brothers. Chairman, I didn't interrupt you. Chairman, I would unfortunately like to go with officer advice, but I would like the legal implications explained.
First of all, don't confuse a highway with a block of flats. It's a completely different concept.
Well, Chairman, with respect, the problems regarding refuge, recycling, etc., are one of the same. You are talking about 9 dwellings within one building, or 9 flats within one building. So the refuge and recycling is off the same.
Right, well, officers will be coming back shortly with an answer to several of these questions. I've still got 4 speakers: Irving Swift, Frenchman, the real Patchett, and Councillor Charles. Councillor Irving Swift.
Yes, I noticed page 56, the property has been inspected and found to meet the standard in the Housing Act 2014. Now, where I am concerned, you are speaking of 9 bedrooms with 2 bathrooms and 1 room. Strangely enough, and I don't know the applicant, and I don't want, but when I went to the East Midland, they have a problem with immigration, and how people will be shoved into that kind of accommodation and have no other. So for me, the main problem is not a problem of planning, it's a problem how we can make sure that what goes into the HMO is absolutely kosher. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I can speak to the applicant. I'm going to ask the applicant one question only. Are there only 2 bathrooms and a loo?
No.
Can you tell me what you've got there?
Yeah, there's an ensuite, 2 bathrooms and a WC.
So they've all got en-suites?
Yeah, and each floor, 1 bathroom on one floor, 1 bathroom on the floor, an ensuite in the main bedroom, and a shower room / WC downstairs. But also, can I just say that property is over 3,000 square foot. It's not a rabbit hutch, but it's a large Georgian property.
Thank you, sir. I'm afraid you can't say anything else. Normally we don't allow applicants.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
So that answers my question that I was going to raise.
Okay. Now I want to come to the next person on the list, which is Councillor Frenchman.
I've had my question answered.
Thank you. Councillor Patchett.
I would like to hear the Councillor Paul's legal question answered at some point.
Well, you'll hear it when two more people have been. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. As a long-time serving member of both planning and licensing, it's always been my understanding that licensing and planning are not interdependent. You can have a license to do something for which you don't get planning permission and vice versa.
Yes.
I just wanted to make that point.
True. Councillor Robertson.
My question is about bathrooms, no one answered.
Councillor Eden.
That was something I wanted to clarify a bit more, because the plans, do you mean that there is one... Oh, sorry. Well, the plans don't show an ensuite in each room.
There's not one.
No, it's one ensuite. One ensuite. Yeah. So you've got three.
Can you explain again, applicants, in one sentence, exactly what you've got as far as bathrooms and toilets?
One ensuite, 2 bathrooms and a shower room.
And toilet?
Which is the WC shower room, which is on the ground floor.
So you have 3 bathrooms?
Yeah.
How many toilets? You have one ensuite.
Okay, so you know what we've got.
The other 8 share 2.
Right, before we take any more members, we've got loads of officers' questions and answers to come back, and I think a question to you as well, Simon.
If I may, Chairman, I'll bottom up the corporate ones.
Yeah.
Try and walk pick up the planning ones, and then if there's any missing, I'll come to Simon.
Okay.
There's quite a few. So, a HMO has to have a trade waste because it's a business. So that's the refuse will be done through that arrangement. As a 9-bedroom property, it's a large property. It's actually, we have to take into account that a lot of people could live there anyway if it was a large family, for example. And that will be taken into account. The environmental health licence requirement for it to be an HMO would have included a visit from the fire service. So you can be assured that it meets the Housing Act requirements of a HMO, but it wouldn't have got a licence. That also means it will be inspected on a regular basis to ensure it continues to comply.
But was that as a 6 or a 9-bedroom?
As a 9.
Okay, thank you.
Most town centre domestic premises have minimal car parking spaces or none at all. It's very common for people who live in town centres not to have a vehicle. There was a question about immigration. Anybody who lets a room or rents a house is significantly at risk if they do not check that the person they're renting the room to doesn't have the right to live in the UK. So you needn't worry about immigration problems. I'm sure that's what your vetting includes.
Absolutely.
If there was a question asked about what if we don't approve it, well, it's been approved. John could go into further details, but it's as far as it goes as a listed building, there's no reason why it can't be used. It's obviously not changing its structure as a listed building. So the listed building consent will just be looking at the fabric of the building and its heritage issues. So the fact that that's gone through is all in terms complies with the scheme of delegation. So that in itself does not compel you to make a particular decision. If it's not approved, of course, the applicant could appeal or they could take no action. I just want to clarify that this committee, if it does not wish to approve this application as recommended, it's perfectly entitled to do so. Councillor Paul mentioned other houses in multiple occupation, or if you know of areas, if you believe there are properties that are being overcrowded, please let us know, because they are always actively investigated by environmental health, and we are in the process of doing quite a detailed survey actually, because we're quite sure that there are lots and lots, because actually my final comment is that it's a modern phenomena that we've kind of done full circle over the last 30 years, because there is a huge demand for single units. People may not wish to live at home until they're 35, but they they want to go out and live in their own home, but they can't necessarily afford to buy their own place. There's lots of changes going on with welfare reforms and so on, and we know from all the work we do with housing that there is very high demand for single units and for house shares and houses in multiple occupation. So it is something that you're probably going to see increasingly come through planning committee, because we have evidence that there is very high demand for houses in multiple occupation, and we also know from recent surveys that most people who live in HMOs don't have vehicles.
Let's back up the planning issue and the listed building consent. Effectively, this building consent has been granted to allow that property to have 9 rooms. So first and foremost, that property has a consent of 9 rooms, but only as a dwelling and not as a HMO. What the application seeks consent for is just purely for the change of use, not for any of the alterations which have already been granted. So, having regard to the listed building consent which has already been granted, that permitted use clearly attracts a level of parking provision which would not be dissimilar to the parking provision which would be attracted for HMOs. In actual fact, surveys have been recently carried out on other applications which demonstrate of those who occupy HMOs, only 5% are car owners, given that their location, given the proximity to facilities, or in clear walking distance. I'd also add to add that with any dwelling and any HMO, if you live in the town centre, you can actually apply to the county council for 2 parking permits plus a visitor's permit. They can also apply to the district council for further permits as well, which make them exempt from the parking restrictions which are currently in place.
Thank you, Joe. And the last question, can you remember it now?
No, what I can remember to help Councillor Robertson is in 1987 I did do a dissertation on houses and multiple occupation, so I think it's a little longer than just a few years ago, and the legislation had been in place for quite a while even then, so they have been around for quite some time.
I remember coming in, but I don't remember when.
Now I can't now, and I can't remember what I wrote in 1987. But important to remember, it is an important distinction. These are houses in multiple. It's a house. It remains a house, but it's a house then in multiple occupation, which then gives it its own status. It is not 9 flats. It is not 9 separate dwellings with their own facilities, and that needs to be understood in that context. It operates as a house in multiple occupation. And so what is the impact of where we are? The listed building consent exists now for that house, I stress just house, to be converted to 9 rooms. That, from what we can see, has largely been done, so it is a 9-room house. So if that is the case, 2 things will happen if you were not minded to approve this. It could not convert to a house in multiple occupation, but it would remain a 9-room house. And then you have to think about, well, what are the parking implications of a 9-roomed house? And the parking implications of a 9-roomed house, and I think I'm quoting members back on this, may well be potentially 1 car parking space per room. I think I've heard members say something to that effect. So if that is the case, that is the issue. So there are difficulties in where you are now, because there is already listed building consent in place. That's already happened, it's already consented. Councillor Chandler is absolutely right. The mere fact that there is a licence been issued by a licensing committee or through the licensing regime for that house in multiple occupation does not of itself mean that you have to grant planning permission for a house in multiple occupation. It is a relevant consideration for you to take into account, because it means that the proper tests for that licensing purpose, which is a different statutory regime, have been satisfied. So you have to take that into account, but ultimately nobody's tested the planning aspect. So if you were minded to refuse it, you would have to be extremely careful to ensure that the reasons that you gave were all planning reasons. I mean, you should always be careful to do that, but even more so here because it's passed all the other tests. I hope that helps.
Okay, does that answer most of your questions so far? I'm going to take two more, then we're going to go to a vote, all right? Right, Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the ensuite is for one room, but it still leaves only two facilities and the toilets. I do worry about kitchens. Kitchens, there are various demands between various religious groups, particularly with Jewish people or with other religious groups in cooking habits, etc., etc. There will be some form of equality, but you know, I've said all I can say. I don't agree with it. It reminds me of Rackman in the 60s.
I think that's an unfair comment. So I think you draw that straight away comment.
Yes,
all right?
I'll withdraw that comment.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Chairman. The comments I made at the beginning about there's no objections from the Environmental Officer, the Conservation, Fire and Rescue have been inspected and they're happy with it, and it has got the HMO. Although I'm not keen on it, I can't find a reason to refuse it.
No.
So, and I'm still concerned about the planning. I don't think we have to think about that in the future because we're getting too many and we don't want to stop people coming here. So I can't see any other reason. So I will ask that we go with officer's advice on this.
Thank you. We have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Those against? Well, there must be some abstentions, is that right?
Yeah.
Do you want to record your abstentions or not?
Yes, please.
Those abstaining, please show. 4 abstentions.
5. Mine was against as well, please. Yeah, no, I'm
Yes.
next to it, please.
You put down the those against. The application is of course approved. Okay. That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much for attending.